listen to these two clips and tell me which one you think sounds better. I bet you said clip number 2 sounded better, but do you know why it sounded better? If you ever find yourself playing from a chord chart or lead sheet and there's just something missing, chances are you don't know about this one trick. And by trick, I mean moderately complex music theory concept to make your chord progressions sound way more polished and professional. Hi, I'm Megan and I'm a piano teacher, and on my channel I share tips, tricks, and tutorials every single week. Let's jump back to Elvis. I'm gonna play it again with each chord exactly as written. Not bad. We could definitely appreciate the chord progression, but there's just something about it that sounds kind of rudimentary. Now maybe you're a little bit more advanced and you've learned how to add octaves in your left hand to zhuzh up your chord progressions. Let's try it that way. That sounds better, but in my opinion, still a little clunky. It also uses both hands, which means we can't play the melody with our right hand, which we might want to do if we're not planning on singing it ourselves or having somebody else play or sing it. And this song is usually played at a pretty slow tempo. But even at this tempo, there's a lot of jumping around, which can lead to errors. So what can we do to make this sound more polished, more pleasing to listen to, easier to play, and potentially free up our right hand to play melody? We need to experiment with inversions. What's an inversion? It's simply taking a major, minor, or 7th chord, putting the notes in a different order. Let's take a C major chord, for example. The normal way to play a C chord is to put the C on the bottom and build up by thirds, which gives us the notes C, E, G. In music theory, we call this root position because the root of the chord, or the note we name the chord after, is on the bottom. To invert this chord, we're simply gonna take the C and move it from the bottom to the top of the chord. Now, the notes are in the order E, G, C. We would call this first inversion. In classical music, we notate this as C6 because the outer interval is now a 6th. And in pop music, this is usually written as C over E with the slash in the middle. We can invert this chord again by once again moving the bottom note, now E, to the top, which gives us G, C, E. We call this second inversion. In classical music, this is notated as C6-4 because the outer interval is a 6th and the bottom inner interval is a 4th. And in pop music, we would notate this as C over G. Now, if we tried to invert again, what we would notice is that we end up back to our root position chord, just an octave higher. So for regular, major, and minor triads, we have root position, first inversion, and second inversion. This is how I would practice these chords and inversions. Remember to do your right hand alone, then your left, then hands together to ensure you've really got it. Really make sure you've got that right hand and left hand solid individually before you bother putting those hands together. I am watching you and will be very disappointed if you try to put it hands together too quickly. Bonus, add some pedal and octaves and you sound kind of like a concert pianist. A slight variation would be this, a bit more advanced since we are just landing on the blocked chords. Let's practice this one more time, this time with a minor chord. Let's spice it up a little bit by adding a black key. Let's do F minor. Root position F minor is F, A flat, C. To invert, we're gonna take the F and move it from the bottom to the top of the chord. Now, the notes are in the order A flat, C, F. This is our first inversion, notated as F minor 6 in classical music, or F minor over A flat in pop cymbals. We can invert again by moving the bottom note, now A flat, to the top, which gives us C, F, A flat. This is our second inversion, notated as F minor 6-4 or F minor over C. And if we try to invert it again, we end up back to our root position chord, just an octave higher. Again, this is how I would practice these chords and inversions. Remember, right hand alone, then left hand alone, then hands together. This is the number one mistake that students make, is trying to put hands together too quickly. If you take a left hand that's 90% confident and a right hand that's 90% confident and you put them together, you get a hands together version that's like 50% confident, okay? It's really, really important to nail this with each hand separately before you even think about putting your hands together. Then add some pedal and some octaves to make it a bit more fancy. And when you're ready, try it on all blocked chords for a challenge. And finally, let's try this with a 7th chord. Now with triads, we primarily just use major and minor, although we do have augmented and diminished chords. Now, if you're not familiar with these types of chords, the extremely quick crash course: major chord, major third on the bottom, minor third on top. Minor chord is a minor third on the bottom, major third on top. Diminished chord is both minor thirds. An augmented chord is both major thirds. Get it? Got it? Good, right? No worries if not. There are a ton of great free online resources for understanding the music theory of chords, and I have an upcoming video on chords as well. Now, if the 4 types of triads freaked you out a little bit, I have terrible news. When it comes to 7th chords, we have 5 primary types of 7th chords, and in jazz, it's kind of a free-for-all. For this video, I'm going to briefly introduce the 3 types of 7th chords that I think come up the most frequently in chord charts and lead sheets, especially for the mainstream pop songs that you might be learning. This will not be a comprehensive overview of 7th chords. Just like with the triads, there are tons of great resources online, and I will be covering 7th chords in my upcoming video. For now, here are the 3 types of 7th chords that I think show up the most commonly. The major 7th chord is a major triad plus a major 7th added from the root of the chord. A dominant 7th is a major triad plus a minor 7th up from the root. And a minor 7th chord is a minor triad and a minor 7th up from the root. A great way to practice these 7th chords so you get comfortable with the notes that belong in each is to play like this. Noticing that to transition to each chord, we only ever have to change one note from the previous chord. A brief comment on notation. We notate the major 7th chord as C Maj 7 or C Maj 7 in classical music, and sometimes just CM7 in pop music. The dominant 7th chord as C7 and the minor 7th chord as C lowercase m7. This is because the dominant 7th chord is actually the most common and most important type of 7th chord, particularly in classical music, so it gets the simplest notation. Now with regular triads, we have 3 positions: root, first inversion, and second inversion. So because 7th chords have 4 notes, we're gonna have 4 positions: root position, first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion. Let's try this with one of the easiest and one of my favorite 7th chords, the C major 7th chord. All white keys because I am a kind and benevolent piano overlord. Let's start with root position, C, E, G, B, notated as C Maj 7, C Maj 7, or C uppercase M7. To invert, we take the C and bring it to the top of the chord. E, G, B, C is our first inversion, notated as C Maj 6, 5 in classical music and C M7 over E in popular music. Let's invert again. We take the E and bring it to the top of the chord. G, B, C, E is our second inversion, notated as C Maj 4, 3 in classical music and C capital M7 over G in popular music. Let's invert one more time. We take the G and bring it to the top of the chord. B, C, E, G is our third inversion, notated as C Maj 4/2 in classical music and C capital M7 over B in popular music. And if we were to try to invert again, we'd end up back to our root position, C major 7th chord. This is how I would practice these chords and inversions. Remember to do your right hand alone, then your left hand alone. Then hands together to ensure you've really got it. How many times can I hammer this home in one video? Just like the major and minor chords, you can then add some pedal and octaves to make it a little bit more fun. And then play it with those blocked chords for a bit of a challenge. I think this is especially challenging in 7th chords because we're gonna have to shift our fingering a little bit more, changing between these different shapes of 4-note chords. Chord inversions are basically used in two main ways. Number one, to create smoother transitions. And number two, to create a different feel or a different relationship between the chords. Let's take a look at a super simple 1-5-4-5-1 chord progression. Let's try it all in root position. Now, let's do some inversions to smooth it out. Notice how it's much less jumpy and it just has a different flavor. Let's try with a different set of inversions. Again, a different flavor to the same chord progression. Here's a little more Theory 101. In any given key, we call the first note of the scale, or the triad built on the first note of the scale, the tonic. And the fifth note and its corresponding triad, the dominant. In C major, for example, the tonic is C and the dominant is G. In A major, the tonic is A and the dominant is E. These chords don't just have a fancy name, they also have a special function. In music theory, this is the role they typically play and the feeling they usually bring. The tonic function is to feel like home, resolution, rest. Conversely, the dominant function is to create tension, restlessness, and a strong pull back to tonic. Like when you've been on vacation and you just dream of getting home and sleeping in your own bed. Now, the extent to which these chords function this way is actually dependent on your inversions. 5-7-1 in root position. This chord feels really dominant-y, and this chord feels really tonic-y, very official music theory terms. This 5-7-1-6-4 feels a lot less dominant to tonic-y. Experiment with every flavor of tonic by pairing inversions in your right hand with different bass notes. And then do the same with dominant. Now, there are some differences in how we would analyze and label all of this in very strict classical music theory, but that is for another video. For now, the takeaway is to consider the difference in flavor and function when we invert chords, especially with your dominant and tonic chords. If you want your dominant and tonic chords to function in a very the end kind of way, try staying closer to your root positions, especially in your bass notes. If you want those chords to be a bit more ambiguous, to lead the listener forward instead of signaling the end, try experimenting with some inversions. So now that we've got all that out of the way and you feel totally confident with all of the music theory behind inversions, triads, 7th chords, tonic and dominant function, let's jump back into Can't Help Falling in Love and look at a few different ways to apply chord inversions to your playing. My first step is just to test different combinations and progressions of chord inversions, and I'll either memorize as I go or jot down what I like. For this first step, I'll keep both hands playing the same chord in the same inversion. experiment with adding octaves or open fifths in the bass. Remember, here you can also experiment with putting any note of the chord in the bass to give it a little bit of a different flavor. Then, once you've found the overall progression you like, you can shake it up. One of the easiest ways to do this is simply with broken chords. Instead of playing all of the notes together, play them individually from bottom to top. Add some pedal and you are sounding pretty professional. The final and slightly more advanced step would be to take your chord progression to just the left hand. You can keep it simple with just the basic chord inversions, or you can add some extra notes like this to fill it out a little bit more and add melody in your right hand. Now the actual last step would be to take this progression and just change up the chords entirely, not just inverting them. This could be adding sevenths, adding seconds, fourths, or sixths, or just replacing the chord with something completely different. This is called reharmonizing, and it's something I'm actually on a journey to learn how to do. After playing exclusively classical piano for 25 years, I am on a quest to learn jazz. I will be doing a 90-day review of learning with Open Studio Jazz. You may have seen their content here on YouTube. This is not sponsored in any way. I am genuinely just a fan. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that video. In the meantime, here's what I came up with using my extremely basic reharmonization skills. Feel free to try it out. Now, to apply these skills to other songs, a great practice approach would be to test out some different inversions and patterns, and write down a couple that you like so you can practice them, and add some of the extra details like bass notes, broken chords, or melody in the right hand. If this feels a little too complicated for you, which is totally okay, I would stick with those inversion exercises that I shared throughout the video and do those for all of your major and minor chords. Focus on learning the chords and inversions before you worry about applying them to a song. Please let me know in the comments what song you are looking forward to trying this with. If there are any other music theory videos you'd like to see from me, and as always, thanks for watching and happy practicing.